business address is Money Talk.
All right, we're getting ready to go live. We got Tobin Robeck in the studio with CCI. I missed you guys last week, but we're back at it for the fun. Stick around for a good hour.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The program that follows has been paid for by PEO advisors. The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of PEO advisors and are not those of Beasley Media Group, this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers. Attention agents and business owners. Can you make heads or tails of workers' compensation? Very few people can. Listen to the pros, making agents and business owners smarter every Wednesday on Everything PEO.
Hello, Tampa Bay listeners and beyond. You're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. Man, I'm still getting used to that. It's only been a few weeks. Bear with me, everyone. I'm Evan Collard. In the studio this week, we've got Tobin Robeck, partner and VP of Construction Casualty Insurance and co-founder of a very unique AI tool called CompCorrect. Looking forward to getting into that today. Doing another lap through here, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back. Happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm a little jealous of your commute. You know, it's like 3 streetlights away. I sat in traffic for 30 minutes, but it's a good day. It's a little hazy out there. It's certainly a good day for a radio station. I always want to pay a little homage to last week's guest, although that was 2 weeks ago. And I got to tell you, those off weeks, they linger with me. I really enjoy my Wednesdays. It breaks up the monotony of, providing insurance and selling PEOs. And, I miss the feedback. I really do. So please hit us up. I get your DMs. I get your emails. We've got that YouTube channel, Everything PEO's YouTube channel. We've been putting a lot of love in that. We've got all our past shows and short videos and reels in there, tons and tons of knowledge in the PEO and workers' comp space. If you're looking to catch up on anything, Everything PEO on YouTube. But a couple weeks back, we had Tim Russell in the studio. Tobin, do you know Tim Russell?
I don't.
No, he's a co-founder of Enterprise HR. They're in St. Pete as well. Really kind of a sponsor to the show. One of the longest privately running owned PEOs in the country. On the top 10 list, he's really been good to us. He really, when I was kind of finding my way in this space, put his arms around me and, really shot our agency to the moon. It's been one of our most valuable partnerships, to say the least. So it's always fun having Tim in here. He's been a great contributor and follower of the show.
That's awesome. It's important to have people like that around, no doubt.
It is. I think everyone has a mentor and a mentee, right? If you're doing things right, or at least you should. I think it always helps to really have that true thirst for knowledge. But if and when you obtain that, you've got to pay it forward.
No doubt. And it's always those little tidbits that aren't in the books, the little pieces of knowledge that you need to move it just a little bit further that steps you a little bit ahead of the competition.
Yes. Yeah, very fair. I was at the EO. I don't know if you're familiar with EO, Entrepreneur Organization. It's a global chapter, or I should say organization, and they break it up. There's 400 chapters throughout the U.S. And they're all entrepreneurs. You have to be a CEO. Your business has to be 5 years old. Have to be a 7-figure earner, et cetera, et cetera. And so they really do, it is their Super Bowl event, like a 3-day mastermind. And it really culminated with bringing in Patrick Bet-David. And, cool. And he really stole the show. And I love those masterminds, but kind of like you said, right? Everyone has that vanilla, you got to have an early morning routine and work out and, do these 5 things and you'll find success, but I'd like to go a little deeper. I like it when they pepper in a little sales training as well. So
yeah, no doubt. And those programs are awesome. We're involved with a group that we meet with peers in our industry, insurance agencies of a similar size but different geography, twice a year for 2 days. And we go through financials and give each other a hard time, talk about what's been good, what's been bad, and ideas that have worked. And having that sort of feedback is amazing.
Yeah. Believe it or not, that's actually one of the things I love about EO. Unlike a BNI leads group. In fact, this is not a leads group. You're not allowed to ask for their business. Now, there's a lot of business going on. They can come to you.
Sure.
But it's 100% strict confidentiality. But I've learned in there, even a dentist, right? I sell insurance, provide workers' comp for the last 22 years. Even a dentist with 5 locations I can learn from, right? We've got a lady in there that's crushing it. She's a sod farmer. She's got 900 acres of sod farming down in Sarasota, and just 10x her business over the last 5-6 years. Inherited it from her father. So it's really neat, kind of hearing all those entrepreneurial journeys along the way. And that's really what this show is. We call it Everything PEO, but really it's more like anything entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's the best part about our business is we get to be involved with a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different things. It never ceases to amaze me the number of ways to make money.
Yeah, fair, right? For our kids out there, I say this all the time. There's never been more ways to make it rain. It's opportunity is everywhere. And if you have just a little bit of savage in you, that the dig deep, that 1% that no one else wants to go for, a little bit of tenaciousness, I just feel like, wow, go get it.
Yeah, we do personality profile testing when we hire people. One of the things we look for is grit.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's important to us. The ability to kind of go through the wall.
Wow, you might have to send me that link.
Yeah, it's cool. We used a program called DISC in the past, and I like that as a salesperson because it's very basic and it's easier for me to understand. And this one, we have like a licensed psychologist review it for us because it's so complicated, but it's amazing how spot on it is.
No kidding. And then so that's more or less the qualifier, the benchmark of if you're taking the interview to the next step or even just to get to the interview.
It's part of our pre-interview process. So we do it beforehand. And a lot of times it won't necessarily, what we're looking for is someone that's going to enjoy the job that they're doing. So it might not necessarily have to do with talent in it, but are you going to show up and enjoy it? And there are times when we find people that have been doing the job for a while and don't seem like a good fit, but they've managed to kind of work their way through. And so we don't not hire those people, but what it allows us to do is to understand what motivates them, what makes them happy, and how can we maybe tailor this job to make them more effective and give them more joy in their day-to-day instead of being stuck in misery.
Good for you. I don't think there's really a lot of employers out there, and maybe that's that tide is turning, right? Coming out of the post era of the Great Resignation, if you will. I think the American worker really is on a comeback right now, with minimum wage going up every year the next several years to $15 an hour, at least in Florida. And you can get an entry-level job at the McDonald's of the world at $15, $16 an hour. I think anyone in the trades that's making 12 or 13, it's really time to go to that boss and say, hey, pay me what I'm worth. I'm a skilled tradesman. But for you to say that literally you will, in essence, tailor the position to optimize them, I think so few employers really go to that level. So kudos to you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, you know what? We had a pretty high turnover before. And so you sit around and look at your business, we look at it all the time and try and figure out how can we be more effective. And you're sitting there, we're burning through people. All right, we got a problem. So how do we fix it? And it's hard to find people. And man, having the wrong people is expensive. It's the most expensive mistake you can make. And so we really put a lot of effort into changing that process and have had a lot more success, and moved our turnover rate probably from like the 60 to 70% turnover to probably in the 20s, which is, I think, a much more palatable rate for sure.
Sure. I mean, I say it all the time that the PEO industry is nearly a 90% turnover rate, oftentimes not due to how hard, kind of quote unquote, the job is, but the financial money lag, right? It takes 6 weeks to build a pipeline, then you make a sale. You really don't feel any efforts from that for at least 60 days, right? Anything from a payroll standpoint ran this month, you get the following month on the 25th. And unless they were written on the first day of the month, it's really not until the next month. So you're talking 60 days out to see what an account really pays you. And just whether it's due to lack of discipline or just the position they were in going into the job, the financial money lag really haunts them the most. I say it, if you come in with the mortgage, the Mercedes, the 5 kids, it's just such a hill to get over.
Yeah, it's tough. And we've always tried to look for salespeople in our organization that have some sort of experience in sales and have made some concessions to be able to bring those people on. And it's a financial commitment for us, right? Because it's not typical in our business at all to be offering a salary to someone. Usually it's draws or something of that nature. And so, we've gone out of our way to really try and find the best salespeople and smart people that can understand what we do, which is a little bit more sophisticated than most. So we've made a financial commitment to those people to kind of bring them through that. But it definitely changes the cash flow for us. And it's a very different outlay than a typical agency.
Well, you're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In the studio today, Tobin Robeck, partner and VP of Construction Casualty Insurance. And largely, Tobin, again, this used to be called Money Talk 1010. I think this is a largely a business talk station. There may be some ears perking up in the Tampa Bay area with some of what you said. So for any of our listeners that didn't hear you come through the show in December and or are really kind of, like I said, the ears have perked up today, let's tell them a little bit about CCI. I know we've kind of gone through your criteria for bringing on quality staff, but get into CCI and their strengths.
Yeah, so we're a boutique risk management firm, specializes in high risk insurance. We like to call our target customer base dirty, heavy, and wet. So the construction, manufacturing, distribution, trucking, marine construction, really anything where there's a frequency of claims or loss, because that's where we feel like we can have the greatest impact. And then what we do a little differently than most of our competitors is we bring our customers all the way through the risk process. And what that means is we go in, do a risk analysis, understand our strengths and our weaknesses, where our past claims were, understand where our safety deficiencies might be, where our safety program is, create recommendations, make changes, do safety training, do everything we can to solve all of that up front, then use that data to go, once we compile it, to go to the market and bring that data that we've now moved how our safety program looks, walks, and talks to an underwriter to then use that to negotiate. And then on the back end, we developed artificial intelligence software program called CompCorrect to manage the claims. And so really our entire goal is to bring customers all the way through that risk process and do everything that we can to reduce their long-term cost of insurance. We always say on a 1-year basis, we're probably not going to be the cheapest, but on a 5-year basis, we're going to blow everybody out of the water.
Yeah, good for you to have that vision. I think, you kind of take this oath, right, as an insurance agent, right, to always put the client's best foot forward, not put them where you're going to make the most, not, it's always got to be client first, from a mindset standpoint. And I'm certainly not, bashing agents out there. A lot of them are good eggs. They go through this approach to the highest respect, but to have that vision past year one, that's hard for a lot of folks. Some folks have trouble just asking for money, right? Down payments, but to say, listen, although I may not be the winner year one, if you follow the protocols and the steps we've built for you here, follow that vision, we'll get you in line. And I think that's that extra step that CCI is taking that so few agencies are out there. So, awesome.
Yeah,
it's flooring me here, man.
Thanks. It's been a good model for us. And because of that, we've grown by at least 35% every year since the year we started in 2015. And it's really allowed us to have strong relationship, not only with our customers, but our underwriters, because we're delivering a product to them where they're profitable. And so we can write deals in that dirty, heavy, and wet, ugly space where, you are going to have claims that other people just can't, because I can go in and prove over the past 7 years how much money we've saved people and how much we've reduced claims.
Well, we've got about 3.5 minutes before break. I know we've talked a little bit about how you've wrangled in, the hiring criteria to find good staff. And I will say, some of your staff really is some of the best we work with, over the past 10, 11 months, post our show. It's been quite the little marriage we've put together here. And it's a real joy working with your reps. So knowing you're in growth mode, 35% year after year. I mean, great track record, by the way. Great track record. What would you say your biggest challenge is, that you're struggling with aside from finding the great staff? Because I believe that's really everyone's challenge.
Yeah, I mean, staff is huge, right? And so we're in the people development business and trying to find the right people. And there's all sorts of challenges with all of that, no doubt. Beyond the people issue, we really, I would say from a challenge standpoint, is not so much that it's hard, but making sure it's such an effort for us that everything that we do is based on a standard operating procedure, so it's scalable. And so every time we do something, we record it, we track it. All right, how can we do this a little bit better? And so we've got repeatability and consistency, and then trying to move that through the organization. And doing that, it's kind of frustrating because you can see the problem sometimes, right? You're like, I see the problem. I know how to fix the problem, but I've got these 5 other things that I'm also working on, and I can't overload the whole system at once. So we sit here and we try and move, ships move slowly, right? And the bigger that we get, the slower the ship moves. And so building that foundation of standard operating procedures for every position in the organization and making sure there's the consistency and then the quality control back behind it is, don't want to say hard, but to build those habits and to continue to move that is, I think, our biggest challenge in continuing to grow the agency. As you get bigger and you start having layers of management, that's when things start to break down, because you can't just rely on having a couple of smart people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I think, we both kind of dabble in the blue collar space. It's surprising how many businesses, don't even have core values labeled out, right? And that's where hiring at the right people matters so much more. We've got to go down that same belief system. I'd say for us, it's the markets. And I think most agents, we'll just throw it in a PEO if we can't write in standard market. That'll be easy. And they're treated kind of as a one size fits all. But there's a few markets out there. There's a few industries that are literally 1 or 2 carriers away. If they pull out, they're in some real trouble. When the housing market collapsed in '08, PEO advisors made a decision to move into trucking and towing and long haul. At one point, we had 10 PEOs writing that risk. Now we're down to 2 or 3. It's really scary for some of these industries out there. So good stuff, my friend. We've got plenty more coming back with Tobin Robeck after the break. Stick around. All right, we are back. Thanks for sticking around. All right. We are back. You got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In studio today, Tobin Robeck, partner and VP of Construction Casualty Insurance. We're going through all kinds of stuff, entrepreneurial goodies, if you will, growing the business, finding good staff. It's funny, Tobin. Obviously, more in the PEO side. I know you guys talk premium, we talk payroll, right? And every client, the number one hurdle for them is still finding good staff.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point where it's just a complete loss of words. right? For a while, all the funny money, the COVID money, I get it. And there was an abundance of it. But I feel like that has long since dried up. Where did everybody go?
Yeah, I it's a great question. And then even when you find people, finding people that want to work, and then finding people that want to better themselves, it's like, it's crazy. And then we've actually gone into training even soft skills, communication, time management, because our education system is not capable of that, apparently. So, we get people out of college that, can't keep a calendar. And it's laughable for you and me, but we see it all the time. And so we've just had to start taking that training on ourselves, because it's just not, people don't come out of school in a position to be successful. It's wild.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. I mean, we hired someone that was going to do some underwriting for us, and on the resume it was, I'm doing Medicaid billing for multiple assisted living facilities and process this process. I mean, we were very excited, and in the end, they couldn't even take 10% out of workers' comp rate. And I don't mean that any sort of way. I'm not trying to be cute about it. It's just like, they must have went on resumebuilder.com and echoed a lot of what was on there, and it's all tough for me to swallow. But that said, the show must go on. So let's get into this. Tim Russell came on a couple weeks ago and spent a fair amount of time talking about the NCCI proposed rate reduction, right, for next year, 15%, an unprecedented drop. And Aaron, our executive producer, that morning had come across an article on one of the insurance journal sites where literally there was a roofer at the ORL, the Office of Insurance Regulation meeting.
OIR, yep.
Yeah, and OIR, and was literally pleading to not lower the rates.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, like, the business owner, they champion, they're going down 15%, lower premiums. This is great. But some of them are understanding that they're going so low, it's going to make their ability to buy affordable coverage near impossible. Carriers are going to leave the state. Underwriting is going to tighten up. Experience modifiers are going to start surcharging, consented rates, et cetera, et cetera. It feels like there's a real big snowball right on the horizon. What's your take on all this, my man?
Roofing rates going down by 22%.
Yeah, same with landscape, 23%.
Yeah. So I actually read through the whole 60 pages, the NCCI report on Florida, because I'm a nerd.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, it's pretty dry reading. It's good if you want to take a nap, I suppose. So buried in there, they have in the third page of their report, says, we don't expect overall premiums to change due to this rate decrease. And if you look back in the state, which we've had rate decreases for 7 years now?
Yeah, and like 11 out of 10.
Yeah,
10 out of 11.
right. We had the 1 year where they're kind of bumped up and down after the 2 court cases. If you look at the overall premium in the state of Florida, it hasn't changed. Hasn't changed for the past 4 or 5 years at all. So even though we continue to take rate decreases, the overall cost of premium is the same. And so what that tells me is, one, you've got an increase in payroll, right? So each individual employee is making more money. Therefore, they're getting similar amount of work comp coverage for themselves. Also, what's happening, and why probably that roofer was pretty concerned, is now your experience mod's starting to get squeezed, and each individual claim is going to have a larger impact on that experience mod, because in order to lower rates, that means our expected losses are lower. So each loss is going to have a bigger impact. And they actually changed the way that they're doing the experience mod equation this year. They changed the ballast, which effectively changes the lowest experience mod you can have. So they're moving everybody to the middle, whereas before you could be real high or real low. And so they're trying to move everybody in, which means that even though on the rate itself, we're going to be giving up 15, 22%, depending on what you're doing. When you look at the payroll increases, when you look at the changes in the experience mod, the only people that are really going to feel that are going to be the people with no claim.
Yeah, I think all of that sounds a bit askew, right? Let's be real here. when we have these massive hurricanes, okay, these contractors don't come work here. A lot of times they move here, right? So we're getting, and just post pandemic, we're getting flooded, not to get political, right? Red state, blue state, we're getting flooded for lots of reasons. I just saw an article the other day that said Florida just got rated as the #1 entrepreneurial state in America, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that the state itself may be collecting the same amount of premium, I don't know if it's directly correlated to wages. I know that obviously minimum wage has gone up a couple of years in a row and it still will be climbing, but we've got almost 800 accounts in our agency. I haven't seen this huge shift in wages per head increasing. I think more businesses are here. I think given the fact that you can run construction all year long versus several states seasonal. I had heard a little birdie said that a big factor for getting this reduction was that they were able to deduct COVID related claims from the formula. Okay.
Correct.
And so same amount of premium,
Correct.
but whatever the number is, 30 or 40% less claims to put towards that algorithm or formula, if you will.
Well, and less premium that year, actually. And so
Yeah.
you get less people working, right? And so you definitely have, they decided that, all right, we'll pull the COVID year data out, but we're still going to use the non-COVID data to build rates. And so that was part of their rate equation for sure. And so, yeah, I agree that all of that I said with payroll and experience mod changes is not going to make up for the full 15-22%, but it's not it's not as glorious as they make it sound for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, and then I don't know if it's the conspiracy theorist in me. Obviously, we have election here next year. I don't think a lot of people get reelected on big increases, but I do feel like there's a rebound coming the year after election. I really, everyone says this is going to be where the insanity of lowering the rates stop. Before this reduction, they were down 78% over the last 18 years. And then now this massive jump, right? But as everyone's been flooding into the state, law of averages say, I know workers' comp, I call it a craps table. No matter how safe you are, no matter how much training you do, OSHA certified, blah, 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 blah. There is just law of averages. Bonehead claims do happen.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And
it's going to happen. Car accidents, life happens.
Right. Trump insurance is workers' comp. Even you get T-boned at the red light, it's not commercial auto. If they're on the job, it's workers' comp, right? And then again, yes, those court cases a couple of years ago when the attorney cap got lifted and the indemnity benefit stretched out from 2 to 5, everyone thought that was going to kind of be the turn. But I do hope it turns. It's bittersweet for us because I do believe the market's just going to get harder. Yep. I think it's going to be the year of CTRs. The consent to rates will be, and I know a carrier, I believe they're only allowed to do have 10% of their book on a CTR.
Correct.
So, but it's just going to pile drive that much more business into the PEO. And it's been like that for a long time. So although
where it's going to be tough is for those new businesses that don't have a lot of history, that might not be at full staff yet. So you don't have the premium dollars in a high risk business. And there's not going to be anyone that's going to want to take a chance on you for sure. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's really going to be problematic. And then also people that have claims. People that have a lot of claims, you're not going to have the premium there necessarily to make that loss ratio make sense for the carrier. And as you said, either a consent to rate to increase the rates to get them to where they need to be, or they're not going to write them at all.
When did you get into insurance?
I got into insurance in 2016.
Yeah, I know you started the business right around then.
So Brad, my business partner started and I came in shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, I got in 2003. Roofing was 61% per 100, right? So if you did the just rough numbers on this, to get a 7-figure premium, you know what I'm saying? You only needed, a 6-figure premium. You only needed $200,000 in payroll. Now you need almost $1 million in roofing payroll just to get a 6-figure premium. I mean, it's and the average ambulance rides 10,000, and the average broken arms 25,000, and whatever all the averages go by. But it's so easy to get upside down now. I mean, it's.
You need to blame our general counsel. Our general counsel, Marianne, the queen of workers' compensation, helped to draft the bill and reform workers' compensation in the state of Florida.
Get her on it. If you have a lobbying fund, I'd be glad to donate.
And she's the one that helped draft it back in 2003.
Good for her.
So, we've seen good results for sure. But with all that, the combined ratios for the carriers are still good. They're making money. And now for the first time in a decade, they get interest income again. So, they're it's not in a position where the carriers are struggling. So it's hard to say, well, I think rates are too low, but there are definitely going to be situations now where you've got individual companies that are going to struggle, no doubt.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good time more than ever. And I know you've embraced the model of partnering with the PEO, but there are still so many agents out there uh, that just really don't understand the true value of partnering with the PEO, right? Whether you want to look at us another arrow in the quiver, another feather in the cap, however you want to metaphorically call this relationship. Why do you think so many agents, Tobin, still look at the PEO model as almost like a second tier of insurance?
Well, from an agency standpoint, we have direct relationships. Not that we don't with PEOs necessarily, but we got direct relationships with insurance carriers that provide a little bit more control over claims. And then it also, insurance agents in general are in the insurance business. And there's definitely some hesitation to also then get into the payroll business or the benefits business that can be associated with the PEO. And so I think in from when you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And so insurance agencies know insurance, and they look at PEO as something that's more than that. And so it is a different mindset for sure. There are also some advantages and disadvantages with both depending on the industry.
Sure, sure. I really, again, not to knock, the conglomerates out there, the Paychexes of the ADPs of the world, they do a great job of teaching their staff payroll and how to talk CPA. And like I said earlier in the show, right, we talk payroll, you guys talk premium, but I do wish they would do a little further job of actually teaching them insurance, right? Because at the end of the day, if you speak onto a client and you're going down the path of, can I take this on for you, whether they're with a PEO or standard market policy, they're shopping it or requesting to shop it with sometimes with very little to no knowledge, and it almost taints the industry a little bit. We actually had an account not that long ago, about a year ago, it had left. Didn't call us, didn't like bounce it off of us, was promised a few $100 a week savings. A couple weeks into it, that savings was there, but he noticed on his invoice there was no workers' comp. And we're not going to say which company it was, but one of the two I just mentioned, and called his rep and said, hey, where's the workers' comp? And they said, well, we weren't able to get it approved, but we thought you still wanted the discounted payroll savings. You know what I'm saying? Elephant in the room, right? Cancellations have gone out. We're getting kicked off jobs. And I know there's a lot of ways to angle this business, payroll, workers' comp, benefits. Not everybody operates the same way that PEO Advisors does, where we're a distressed workers' comp specialist at our core. But I think now more than ever, especially with the landscape where it seems to be trending, every agent should have a good PEO partner in their Rolodex.
But yeah, no doubt, and definitely it's going to be more of a struggle with these rate decreases to get things written, and that creates opportunity for sure. And to speak to the payroll situation, yeah, I believe ADP is the largest writer of workers' compensation in the country.
And
yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, and they treat it very transactionally. I'll say, it is not. They're not going to fully understand the experience mod conversation that we're just having. They're not going to understand the claims process. You've got a transactional bunch there that are there as an accoutrement to the payroll service, but not the other way around. Whereas what you're offering from a PEO standpoint has a full understanding of both.
Yeah, it's important. All we do is partner with agents all over the country. And if the very first moment, we try to enter into that arrangement, we can't talk insurance, this slows down very quickly. That's just how my mentor taught me. It just seemed like a true, real way to scale the business. If you want to go door knocking every day and try and sell discounted payroll services, there's just thousands of companies doing that. This felt like, the angle for us. And we've had a lot of great relationships. It's funny, some of our best, providers, referral partners, whatever you want to call them, agency partners, are agents themselves that only write workers' comp, And so they partner with agents in the same capacity. Hey, you write the GL, the commercial auto, give me the comp, and then they hit the same roadblock that every other agent hits, and then they still feed it to us. And it works out to be a pretty good little marriage.
Yeah, for sure. And we do a lot of work with payroll companies to be able to solve that problem externally. And for you in the PEO model, it's great, and that's why we partner with you.
So we've only got about 2 minutes before break. I want to really dive into CompCorrect a little bit on the next segment. I feel like to open that can now, we just have to shut it down quickly. But we spent a little bit of the show kind of talking about, obviously, Florida being the number one entrepreneurial state and how you've grown your business through all the struggles of the, kind of the great resignation era. But anyone that's listening that's, really kind of appealing to what you've been saying, if you had to give advice to anyone kind of considering becoming an entrepreneur in today's market, what would that little tidbit you throw out there? We got about a minute before break.
Yeah, to me, if you want to become an entrepreneur, however long you think it's going to take you, it's going to take 3 times longer. And however much money you think it's going to take 3 times more. And that's probably short by 10 times.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like the entrepreneur has that extra gear, right? And sometimes you don't know if you possess that extra gear until you really go down the landscape. But yes, every failure has a lesson in it.
No doubt.
And just like if you're cold calling and you get hung up on, some people have that calloused over thick skin where that doesn't affect you in any way. And others take that first failure as, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done it. Let's pivot back. I've really only had 2 jobs in my adult life. And I was a mortgage broker through the refi boom and all of that. And then didn't really like depending on realtors to find my business and pivoted into PEOs, at 20. And those are really, but it was 1099, eat what you kill. I never had the base, never had the bennies. I guess it's just all I've really known in my adult life. But all right, we've got plenty coming back with Tobin. We're going to get into his new AI tool. I guess it isn't new, but stick around. It's a good one. All right. We are back. Man, isn't it just a fast hour? Now that you've come through a couple of times, it's like you get comfortable in here, you just start rapping. Well, last segment of the day, last but certainly not least.
Last already, huh?
Yeah. It's funny, when we were starting the show last year, they were like, well, in theory, you could take the full hour. It's almost like you're 58 minutes to do what you want with. And I felt like I might need the commercial breaks just to break up the monotony. But now I really think I could just stroll straight through, almost podcast style. But
For sure.
well, we were teasing a little bit before break, and I know we kind of got into this in December when you did a lap through here, but CompCorrect, right? I think with AI kind of on the boom. Let's bring it to our listeners one more time, kind of the basics of that, and we'll go through it a little bit.
Yeah, we were doing AI before it was cool.
Right.
Yeah, we launched CompCorrect in February of 2020, which was a really fantastic time to start a business.
Yeah.
And so that's separate from our agency, but it is integrated into our agency. We do have a lot of customers that just use CompCorrect. Usually they end up coming to the agency, but so CompCorrect's an employer-facing claims management software program. And the intent is to help employers get these claims closed out in a cost-effective way for them, in a way that they can keep their injured employee, in a way their injured employee can get benefits more quickly, and then long-term continue to place them in a position where even when rates are going down, even when the effects of claims are higher, that we still can manage our experience mod and still maintain a strong relationship with our carrier. So we're not in a position where we're like, oh no, now we need to go get new coverage. And so through that process, we're able to move the needle on claims. We get data about 2 weeks faster than the insurance carrier would normally get. We also are able to get employees back to work, typically within 24 hours, about 90% of the time. Whereas normally they'd be sit around waiting, trying to figure out what they're doing, and then help the employer communicate with that injured employee. So that injured employee doesn't feel like they've been left on an island waiting to deal with an insurance carrier that they don't know.
Yeah. And I almost think naively, I mean, heck, I've had dozens, hundreds probably of clients that have been with us for many years and never even had a workers' comp claim or gone through those steps. So it's hard maybe sometimes to really grasp how this works. But of course, especially in a PEO, maybe not so much in the standard market, you have an injured worker, right? Of course, you call 911 if you have to. But if you can call the PEO or call the carrier, get dispatched to the fastest or closest clinic, if you will, they'll send over a authorization number, turn on the benefits, start care immediately. Usually within 24 hours, the employee will be subject to a urine analysis, or they may even take that at the clinic. And assuming everything checks out, the process rolls on. But from there, that's where it becomes a murky, not all things created equal kind of process. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So continuing on that, so you leave the doctor's office, you're injured, you don't know if you can go back to work or not. You probably want to get back to work, but you're probably a little scared. Maybe it was your fault, maybe it wasn't. Still workers' compensation. And your employer, who might not have a lot of claims, doesn't really know what to do. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid because, especially in Florida, very litigious. So they don't want to say anything to you. So you're sitting at home going, well, I don't know what's going to happen with my job. I don't know what my employer needs me to do, so I'm just going to go home. The problem becomes that medical clinic has, statutorily speaking, up to 2 weeks to send over those doctor's notes to the adjuster. And so you're going to get a phone call probably within 48 to 72 hours, assuming your employer reports the claim on time, from an adjuster that says, I would like to help you, but I have no information to help you yet. So please continue to stay at home. Mm-hmm. And so you sit at home and wait. If you need any follow-up care, and you know how bad the medical system can be, right? If you need a specialist, that can take a long time, even if you know that you need that right away. So that adjuster isn't really going to get that information for at least a week, usually 10 days, sometimes longer, depending on the carrier, depending on the situation. So,
and especially in the medical system, everyone wants to get their cut, right? You got to go to the standard general practitioner first. He's got to write the script to the next person. And sometimes that's multiple appointments, right? I mean, so time is of the essence.
Yeah, no doubt. And time is of the essence for the injured employee. The longer you're out, the less likely it is that you come back. So that's problematic. And then time is of the essence for the employer, because the longer you're out, the more expensive the claim is. And while you're sitting at home in the state of Florida, you've got a 7-day waiting period on your pay. That means on day 8, the clock starts ticking. Somewhere around day 17, you get your first paycheck for 66 2/3 of 1 week of pay.
Mhm.
So that means when you've been out of work for 2 weeks, you probably don't have any secondary care set up. You've spoken to probably 2 different adjusters, because the first adjuster that calls is what they call medical only adjuster, and they are less seasoned. And then once you're out for more than a week, you get what's called a lost time adjuster that probably knows more about what they're talking about. But once you talk to that second adjuster, they probably still can't help you. And then your employer is afraid to talk to you. So you sit at home and hope for the best, want the best. And then eventually you get a check for 33% of your money. And that's usually about the time you call a lawyer.
And I think that even caps at under $600. So if you're making, multiple $1,000s a month in salary, your 2/3, I believe, caps.
It's about $1,200 now.
Oh,
Yeah, they bump it up.
Kick it up a little bit each year. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time. And so, okay, fine. You finally get to the point of hopefully you're approved for light duty, right? You can come back to work up to 20 hours. You can lift up to 10 pounds. I would imagine you're not in the clear yet.
Yeah. And so average workers' compensation claim is going to go on for more than 12 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even something basic. And so you're going to be dealing with this in some capacity for a while. And you've got light duty, which is going to affect potentially your ability to do your job. Probably your employer doesn't even know that they can put you on light duty, get you back into work, or maybe they don't want to because they don't understand the importance of it. So eventually what happens is you get litigation because the employer says, well, come back to work, and you don't come back to work, and you don't get paid, and the lawyers get involved, and then there's a settlement. And when you're settle, typically the insurance carrier requires your resignation.
Same with the PEO.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. So what's happening now is now you're required to resign. And workers' compensation is a defined benefit system. So you get medical infinitum. From $1, workers' compensation is going to pay your medical bills, whatever they cost. And then you're going to get 66 2/3 of your pay for up to 5 years in the state of Florida. And so that's what you're going to get. And when you settle, typically you get less than that, but you've already gone down this path. And so it becomes very frustrating to employers too, because they don't want their employers or employees suing them, right? And it feels like a lawsuit, but it's not. It's actually what's called a petition for benefits, because they're petitioning for the benefits they think they deserve. And it's important that they get those. So what happens is in that process, with the delay, right, with medical care and potentially pay, maybe we reported the claim late, that injured employee is not getting the benefits. So now you've created a mechanism for the attorney to get involved. Now we're paying attorney's fees through our workers' compensation policy. And we've now moved from an injured employee that maybe got injured through no fault of their own, it could have got rear-ended driving, right, and to the employer losing a good employee and that injured employee not having a job, and the cost factors for the employer significantly increasing over the course of time, because that claim is going to sit on your cost factors for at least 3 years, depending on what type of program you're in.
Yeah. Workers' comp history is just like your credit years, to build it, a day to ruin it, right?
No doubt.
And I think almost naively, when the injured worker is just looking for advice, right?
Oh, for sure.
I don't know where to go from here. I think if the first thing that attorney said is, hey, we can go down this path, but you may be forced to resign, so many more would just pull back and let the system do its process, almost not understanding that once the attorney's involved, there is no more talking to your friend, the boss, your friend, the manager, because attorneys talk to attorneys now, and everyone gets sidelined.
Well, and you've got everybody then involved in this process has different goals of what the outcome they want. So you've got the insurance carrier that wants one thing, but now they've hired defense counsel who wants to move this through the process as quickly as they can. You've got the claimant's attorney that wants to make sure that they move this through the process so they can get paid and go take the next case. You've got the employer who's sitting there trying to make sure that, they get frustrated too. They're, why is my employee what they feel like suing me, right? So I want out. And so you've got every party involved trying to get to a different place. And so with CompCorrect to bring all that back, what we do is we can get those doctor's notes usually in the same day, typically within 24 hours. So I'm able to then make decisions with our employers about developing a return to work program the next day. So instead of being out for 2 weeks, I'm going to be able to get you back to work the next day. Typically, that happens 90% of the time.
Impressive.
Also with that, I now know, because I can get the doctor's notes. It's a DWC 25 in the state of Florida. It's a state regulated form that the doctor is required to hand out. It usually goes in the trash. We can then know what follow-up care is needed. So I can then go get an adjuster on that day to go get follow-up care set up. And more importantly, now that that injured employee is back to work, that injured employee is getting paid. So now that injured employee is not sitting on the couch. That injured employee is not without pay, and medical care is being handled. So instead of everybody going in the direction that they want to go because the process has followed the process, we now have everybody rowing the boat together. And we can document that process all the way through. And what the system's doing is making decisions about the claim, helping to decide what are our best next steps, and then tracking with the proper documentation what's required. So when a return to work program set up, documentation needs to be sent out. Our system sends that out via certified mail, stores it. So if we do get down the road and there is litigation, we've got all the data. If work is missed or a medical appointment is missed, it's alerting the proper people, creating the proper documentation. A lot of times medical appointments, not the first one, but the second one or the third one get missed. Mm-hmm. And you've got the same problem where those doctor's notes aren't coming for 2 or 3 weeks. And at that point, they find out, oh, shoot, we've got to reschedule it again. Well, if that's a specialist, now you've gone from a claim, that doctor's appointment that next one might be a month out or 2 months out. And so now a claim that could have closed out in 6 weeks is now dragging on for 4 or 5 months. And so we're able to get that information right away. And this system will continue to repeat this process through every medical appointment to get the next doctor's appointment to figure out what our next changes need to be for return to work. And so we're able to reduce the cost of workers' compensation claims by over 60%.
I was just going to ask you, what's the end game on this?
Yeah, 60%.
Good for you.
Yeah, we move the needle a ton. But when we first started the program, we thought the most important things to employers is we're going to save them a bunch of money. Well, if you remember when we started our conversation, what was the number one problem people had? Finding good people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And boy, there is no better way to upset an employer than to make them lose their good people. And so what we found is our customers, what's most important to them is that they get to keep their good people.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. We've got about 3 minutes left in the show. So talk to me, with this AI boom, is this saturating CompCorrect, or is it making it a shiny star? I gotta assume there's not a ton of these out there.
No, we really the only folks that do it, as far as I know. There's another company that tries to do it, but unfortunately what they try and do is move the claim away from the employer. But the employer is the one that's got the relationship, so you've created additional friction where there doesn't need to be that. Mm. But from an AI standpoint, what it's done is legitimize us. AI used to be a bad word. Everyone's like, ooh, that's scary. I don't want to be around that. And so now, because we use that in our decision making, because it's so mainstream, when we say it, people get excited about it now. And so it's been really helpful for us. And we lead with technology in our agency, and it's helped us drive a lot of business. That's why we grow so fast.
So at what point are you introducing this, right? You secure their coverage and you say, hey, I've got this tool, or is it just one of your value props day one as the agency?
Yeah, no, it's day one. It's usually a leader for us. A lot of people, you go talk to them and they say, I like my insurance guy. He's my buddy. So no one wants to talk about insurance. And plus, who wants to talk about insurance anyway? It's boring and it's expensive. You never feel like you get any value of it. But now I can go in and talk to employers and say, look, I don't need to talk about the insurance. We'll get there. But what I need to talk about is the systems you have in place and what you're doing to actually lower your cost of insurance. Insurance is insurance. It's a commodity. It's going to go up and down with the rates. Someone's going to quote it. They're going to be 10% here, 10% there. Might find somebody a little bit cheaper. But long term, what's going to matter is the claims and the way you manage your business.
Love it, man. That's quite a shiny little tool there. Kudos to you for really being on the front end of this. I think, just like we were joking about changing with the times, and anyone that's not embracing AI now 20 years from now is going to be like the old school guy that didn't believe in the computer or the internet, right? I mean, if there's one thing I kick my butt about, it's I wish I got a little more techie. I live on my laptop, I breathe on it, it's my whole world, but doesn't mean I crave it, doesn't mean I'm an IT specialist. And so to be on the front of this, good for you.
Yeah, it's been an awesome experience. Some days you want to pull your hair out, being an entrepreneur and doing something different. When we first launched it, we thought that this thing would sell like gangbusters. And we started to go sell it to other insurance agencies, and they're like, well, we don't understand this.
Wow.
And so we thought we'd have this big distribution model, and we just haven't. But what it's allowed us to do is retain it in-house and allowed us to continue to get more salespeople and grow our business. And it's helped us grow so much that we're at the point now where we're like, we don't even want to license it anymore. We enjoy it too much having it for ourselves.
Yeah, no, I think it's an absolute validator, credibility builder for yourself as an agency. Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate you doing another lap through here. It's always great to have you. Next week, we've got Kurt Fromelt with IOA Insurance Offices America coming in to discuss why agents should always partner with PEOs. It's always a great hour with Kurt. Heck, you know how this ends. Love God, appreciate your PEO, be kind to your staff. I know we're on a 167-hour break. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate
You've been listening to Everything PEO.